Samsung is a global business brand that every single person around the world has heard of. They know them for their smartphones, while others for their televisions and some for their blockbuster semiconductors. All of these combined have created the big Samsung Electronics business, which is now worth $353 billion in market capitalization. This means that Samsung's market cap is worth much more than some nation's gross domestic product or GDP. Such a big business means that they are important for the entire global economy. But for one nation, they are much more needed than any other. Vietnam is a developing nation and has opened up its economy to many foreign investors. One of the investors that took advantage of the nation's developing status is none other than Samsung. Samsung has a massive business in Vietnam, and when we say massive, it is very big. Their locally incorporated company known as Samsung Electronics Vietnam Thai Nguyen has invested over $20 billion into Vietnam. This has resulted in huge economic benefits for Vietnam and its people. Between 2018 and 2022, Samsung contributed massively to Vietnam's export industry, achieving over $306 billion in export turnover. Notably, in 2022 alone, Samsung's export turnover reached $65 billion. This substantial contribution played a crucial role in propelling Vietnam's total export turnover past the $700 billion mark for the first time, ultimately exceeding $332 billion. CEVT has also significantly impacted employment, generating job opportunities for 150,000 individuals. Notably, over 79,000 of these employees are from Thai Nguyen. Additionally, CEVT has made a substantial fiscal contribution, contributing over $1 billion to the state budget to date. But these are only a mere overview of Samsung Vietnam's contribution to the Vietnamese economy. Just take into account how big $1 billion is. It is the livelihood of thousands or even tens of thousands of people in a given year. If we take a look at this from an international trade perspective, this may undoubtedly help visualize the importance of Samsung for the entire nation. In 2022, their export turnover reached $65 billion. The key to understanding how important this is the concept of exports. Exports happen when a nation sells a product or service overseas. In this case, Samsung Vietnam is exporting or selling their products to, say, the United States. When this happens, the United States will pay Vietnam in US dollars. A part of this US-denominated currency then piles up within Vietnam's reserves. These reserves are essential because they enable the country to maintain financial stability and economic independence. As the reserves grow, they provide a cushion against economic shocks, which is crucial for maintaining investor confidence and economic stability. It helps stabilize Vietnam's dong, which is the country's local currency. They are really important, but another key in understanding their impact and importance is the history in Vietnam and its future plans. Let's first talk about the history of Samsung in Vietnam. In early 2008, Samsung Electronics announced that it would invest 50.5 billion Korean won into northern Vietnam. Now, the investment was for the construction of a mass production mobile handset plant. They were eventually granted the green light by the Vietnamese government after submitting the necessary documents for this project. What made this investment possible and even lucrative for Samsung was because of Vietnam's entrance into the World Trade Organization, or WTO, as well as its membership into ASEAN, which meant that cell phones produced in Vietnam will be subjected to a 5% tariff cut in the ASEAN market. And given Vietnam's low labor rate and persistent government push for economic growth, Samsung saw the nation as the best destination for its plant. Hence, their mass production factory would immediately be big. It would have an annual production capacity of over 30 million units initially, and will increase to over 100 million units in the future. Moreover, the plant was cheered by local officials and businessmen, as Samsung said that it will buy 40% of its materials from Vietnamese suppliers and provide jobs for over 20,000 local workers. It is to many's surprise that when we look back on it now, their $46 million investment was nothing compared to their investment today. A year later, by 2009, Samsung Vietnam's registered investment capital would balloon to over $670 million. and is reportedly capable of producing 60 million cell phones every single year, and is expected to reach over 100 million by 2012. The plant, located in Yanfeng I Industrial Zone in the Baiknin province, stated that they were using materials and components from 32 suppliers, including 15 local ones. By October of 2009, they were employing about 2,300 laborers. While Samsung was investing in their Baiknin plant, they were also expanding other businesses. Ho Chi Minh City hosts the largest household appliance factory in Southeast Asia. And besides Samsung Electronics, investments include Samsung Electromechanics Samsung Display. Samsung Vietnam, in just a short amount of time, became one of Samsung's biggest manufacturing plants. There were only 7 mobile phone factories run by the Samsung Group. The plant's first export abroad amounted to about 20,000 cell phones and went to the UAE, Thailand, and Singapore. In 2010, Samsung Vietnam, along with the Vietnamese government, would celebrate the company's $1 billion export turnover. The Yanfeng plant was now employing over 7,000 workers, 3 times as many as last year. And moreover, smartphones are now being exported to over 53 countries and territories globally. The total registered capital, however, still only amounted to $916 million. 2 years later, by 2012, Samsung Vietnam had called on the Vietnamese government to provide additional incentives. Incentives are basically benefits provided by the government to encourage businesses to invest and expand in their country. These can include tax breaks, reduced tariffs, subsidies, infrastructure improvements, and other financial or regulatory advantages aimed at making the investment environment more attractive and competitive. Samsung Vietnam was already enjoying tremendous amounts of incentives. They had a preferential income tax rate of 10% for 15 years, a tax exemption for 4 years after, and a 50% tax reduction for the following 9 years. But some authorities said this was not enough. The expansion of Samsung Vietnam would face difficulties if no assistance from the government is provided. And 2012 was still a time when Vietnam needed a lot of foreign investments. Samsung Vietnam was in a primed position to give it to them. They wanted to increase their registered capital to over $1.5 billion. For Samsung Vietnam to reap as many benefits as they can, it is no wonder that they want more incentives. A month after this was reported, Vietnam had given the green light to give more incentives to Samsung Vietnam. This enabled Samsung Vietnam to announce a new $700 million investment into the country. This big investment was for a new mobile phone factory located in the northern Vietnamese city of Thanh Nguyen. By the end of the year, Samsung Vietnam is now leading Samsung Electronics' overseas handset plants in terms of production, pumping out over 150 million units per year, accounting for 1/4 of the company's annual output. A Samsung official was quoted back then saying that the total investment in Vietnam by 2020 is expected to grow to over $2.2 billion. By the early months of 2013, Samsung Vietnam signed a 49-year lease with the local Vietnamese government for its second factory in Vietnam. The project was expected to generate 10,000 workers in its first year of operation and would increase to over 30,000 in the following years. In that year, it was evident that Vietnam had become a smartphone manufacturing hub. Samsung Electronics Vietnam alone had plans to produce over 240 million smartphones in 2013, which was 20% of the world market share. Vietnam was onto something big, and they knew they were in a position to benefit from this booming technology trend. By 2015, Samsung Vietnam would now become a big company. Their 2 high-tech facilities that produce mobile devices and components in Bac Ninh and Thanh Nguyen provinces have a combined investment of $7.5 billion. The 2 facilities together exported $26.25 billion of products in 2014 and now created jobs for over 100,000 laborers. In May of 2014, they had also announced a big investment into the Samsung Consumer Electronics Ho Chi Minh City complex, a project that covers 70 hectares and a total investment value of $1.4 billion. Fast forward to 2019, Samsung Samsung Electronics' 4 subsidiaries in Vietnam would reach total revenues of $31.8 billion just for the first half of that year. A significant investment announced was the $220 million Research and Development Center in the west of Hanoi. The project aims to be Southeast Asia's most advanced R&D center, spanning 11,600 square meters with a 16-floor building to house 3,000 employees. Today, Samsung Vietnam is not just any small Korean foreign investor. They are the largest and most important investors in Vietnam. From the time they invested less than $1 billion to over $22.4 billion, they have impacted the nation like no other. In 2024, Samsung is now expecting to invest $1 billion every single year into Vietnam to further segment its smartphone base in the country, which is now responsible for half of its smartphone output. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.